It just makes no sense. So I'm out in the garden, you may pick up the birds, hopefully there won't be much other noise than that. This is a very exciting lesson. This is cracking a code that's been long overdue to be cracked, because it causes a lot of division and separation. And as we can see from here, it's simply a coded message, a very hidden coded message, and there's some very profound secrets to be revealed, so let's go through them then. First of all, we need to go look in the Talmud to where this reference to the boiling excrement is found. Many times on my journey I've been quoted this about Yeshua, or Yeshu as he's called, with his name erased, and that will come up today. Is in a boiling pot of excrement, and it's taken from the Talmud, and it's taken from this. Surprisingly, it's to do with Onkelos, who was a convert to Judaism from Rome. The whole story of Onkelos is absolutely incredible. He is the one whose Targum, the Aramaic Targum translation of the Torah is in every single Chumash. So in all the 5 books of Moses, you get the translation of Onkelos included with it. Okay, so here it is. It says he's trying to find out whether it's worth him going to convert to Judaism. So obviously he's up to some things that are quite suspicious. Onkelos then went and raised Yeshua the Nazarene from the grave through necromancy. Onkelos said to him, "Who is most important in the world where you are now?" Jesus said to him, "The Jewish people." Onkelos asked him, "Should I then attach myself to them in this world?" Jesus said to them, "Their welfare you shall seek, their misfortune you shall not seek." Okay, so I just brought myself up. "Their welfare you shall not seek, their misfortune you shall not seek. For anyone who touches them is regarded as if he was touching the apple of his eye." So that's taken from Zechariah 2:12. Let's read on. So it's very interesting. For all those things that I've mentioned, this is prior to his conversion. If he'd have converted, he wouldn't have been able to perform necromancy. But even that in itself is, quite revealing, shall we say. Onkelos said to him, "What is the punishment of that man?" A euphemism for Jesus himself. These words are included, by the way. It's not actually in there. I do believe their words are included. A euphemism for Jesus himself in the next world. Jesus said to him, "He is punished with boiling excrement." As the Master said, anyone who mocks the words of the sages will be sentenced to boiling excrement. And this was his sin, as he mocked the words of the sages. The Gemara comments, "Come and see the difference between the sinners of Israel and the prophets of the nations of the world. As Balaam, who was a prophet, wished Israel harm, whereas Jesus the Nazarene, who was a Jewish sinner, sought their well-being." Okay, so that's from the Talmud, Gittin 57a 3-4. So we're really going to have a look at this comment then, the boiling excrement. Here, look, Zohar Ratahat. This is the coded message that we're going to try and crack. Let's go and have a look. In the next lesson, I haven't got time to do it in this lesson because it would go on too long. I actually apply a cipher to these words, the same cipher that's used in the Mezuzah scroll for Adonai Eloheinu Adonai. I don't know whether you're aware, but it does come up in this lesson. So at that point, as soon as it came up, I thought to myself, that's quite interesting that particular cipher is associated with this particular phrase, boiling excrement in the Hebrew. Let's cipher up this and see what that brings out. So I ciphered it both ways, forwards and backwards in the alphabet. I'll describe it when I get to the point. And incredible gematria. So this is the first part 1, and then there should be a part 2, which is looking at the cipher of this particular phrase. So this is the phrase that is used, boiling excrement, and these are the numbers for it. Incredible numbers associated with this, by the way. Let's go and have a look at some of them. First of all, Pidyon Nefesh. So this means redemption of the soul. Okay, this redemption of the soul, this is as it's spelt in Exodus 21:30. There's a couple of mentions of Pidyon Nefesh, and it's spelled slightly different within the Tanakh, but this is the spelling of Pidyon Nefesh. If you want to go look at that verse, Exodus 21:30, it's spelled like that, redemption of the soul. So Mispah Gadol plus the regular equals 1,224, exactly the same as boiling excrement. So this is coded message to let us know in some way that involved in this exile, if you like, of the exile of Yeshua, it's somehow involved. There's also connected to this concept of Pidyon Nefesh, where his soul needs redemption. Let's not forget, he was sold by his own brothers to the hands of the Romans, and he has been sold, if you like Joseph was sold into slavery. This time it's Edomite slavery. He needs a Pidyon Nefesh, he needs a redemption of the soul from that place. So that's for a start. I'm going to say this in advance. When you do cipher the name up, because it will make a lot of sense. I will go through this much more clearly in the next lesson, but when you do cipher up this, it comes to 433. 433 is Galuth, which means exile. So essentially it's telling, this is really coded message. We don't get to it in this lesson because we're going to look at some really incredible other stuff instead as a preliminary, but in the next lesson you'll see that it's really code name for Galuth, for exile itself. Yeshua has been placed in exile for an ultimate good, just as Joseph was exiled into Egypt for an ultimate salvation. Okay, and I will go through that. But his soul needs redeeming from that place of exile. He was sold into Rome, the hands of Rome. The Vatican is symbolic of Rome now, and he needs redeeming back. He's not a Roman, he's a Hebrew. Just as Joseph was not Egyptian, he was a Hebrew, even though he looked like an Egyptian. So that's the first important note to make. This is coded name. This is a code name for the necessity of a Pidyon Nefesh on behalf of Yeshua HaMashiach, Yeshua HaNazri. And then straight away again we've got this other highly significant reference to Yeshua Sahapanim. Yeshua Sahapanim is quoted in the Rosh Hashanah Machzor. It's one of the prayers in the Rosh Hashanah Machzor, and is mentioned alongside Metatron, Sah Ha'olam, and Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, so who is it that we need a Pidyon Nefesh for? Yeshua Sahapanim. This is telling us that Yeshua is significant. It's letting us know that Yeshua is Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, that's essentially what this is. That 153 is very significant as well, because one, it's 153 fishes in the dragnet, the last sign after he'd been resurrected and he appeared to his disciples. This was a significant number that in Christianity doesn't get translated. There's no understanding of it essentially, apart from some reference by Jerome, I think, back to a verse in Ezekiel that talks about many fishes and things like that. And there is definitely some connection to that. But 153, and I've mentioned this before, is connected to the phrase who has ascended into heaven and descended, bearing in mind at this point he'd already ascended into heaven and is descended and is on his way into exile. And that phrase, who has ascended into heaven and descended, I've gone over this a lot. If you look at the initial letters of that, it spells Me'esav. Where does he need redeeming from? Mashiach Yeshua. He's redeeming from Me'esav, from Esav. He's been sold into Edomite slavery, which is essentially Esav. It says in the Torah, Edom is Esav, or Esav is Edom. So he's been sold into Edomite slavery, Me'esav, and he's redeeming from there. The sign of the 53 fishes were letting us know that he needed to be redeemed at some point from, just like fishes are caught in the water, he needed to be hauled back in from where it is that he was exiled to. And also 153, the initial, how you would write that, because obviously there's no numerals in Hebrew, it's letters, and the letters of 153 are Kof, Nun, Gimel, and they are associated with a phrase in Talmud, a phrase in the Tanakh, Karo, No, Gam, call out now. And as you can see, I've talked about this before, the first two letters, Corona, are exactly the same as, and the rabbis have made the association to this being the coronavirus. So at the time of the coronavirus, which we're still in that time, aren't we, vaccines and all things like that, that was the time to call out now, start to bring him out from where he's been exiled. Okay, so corona, gam, also that word, kof, nun, gimel, which is 153, kof is 100, nun is 50, Gimel is 3, Kof, Nun, Gimel, Corona, Gam. The word Gam is got the gematria of 43, and 43 is the gematria of Esav. The ordinal of Esav is 43. Not only that, twice did he call out to his father and said, bless me also, Gam, bless me, Gam. So that word Gam is associated very much with Esav. So Corona, Gam, call out now, me from Esav. Call out me also. Because Yeshua essentially had to get dressed up as Esav. Talked about this in the last lesson. Basically, when he was sold into Esav, Yeshua represents Yosef, and on the tree of life, Yosef is symbolic of the male anatomy. But when he's been sold into Esav, which is represented by the foreskin, it's basically his Hebrew identity as being covered up by the thick foreskin of Esav. You know, he needs to be redeemed from there. He needs to be pidyon nefesh from that whole situation. And essentially, why did he go there? To transform Esav. To transform Esav from chaos into shalom. And this is what he's been doing. He is Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. Okay, so on a young lion and a cobra you will tread. That also comes to, this is quite interesting actually, because you've got up here, you've got the two words. The first word, the square ordinal of the first word, boiling, okay, is 386. What is 386? It's code name for Yeshua again. So we're talking about something here. Something is very mysterious. It's like Vilna Gaon said. He said that the entire Aggadic tales in the Talmud are the exile of the Torah of Moshe. This is the foreskin, if you like. These Talmudic tales that we've just read, you know, that are highly mystical coded language, and it's up to a third of the entire Talmud is Aggadic tales like this. The Vilna Gaon basically said that is the Torah of Moshe in exile. That in and of itself, do you know what this produces? This produces foreskin. Just like the fact that the whole story of Yeshua HaMashiach, who's a Hebrew, got dressed up as a Roman god within Catholicism and then through Protestantism and things like that. The truth of who he was, the actual Hebrew truth of Yeshua, is got all disguised. But so too did the Torah of Moshe. What's the consequence of this? When it's garbed up in a foreskin of Esav, it creates ego. Because Esav is our ego, it's our flesh. It causes our flesh to be inflamed with lust and perversion and desire and war, essentially war. It causes division, it causes separation, it causes false sense of superiority. This is ego that it inflames. Stories like this inflame the Jewish person against the Christian, as if they're somehow more superior, not knowing that believing this in its state is doing the exact same thing that they're thinking Yeshua was guilty of. And it's concealing a great hidden mystery. Okay, the Christian